We're in Llanberis, and where better to record a climber's guide to Slate. So Slate is this rock here. It's a metamorphic rock. All of the platy minerals are aligned in it so that there's a pervasive cleavage. You can fracture it into these nice planes. And in fact, that kind of cleavage is called slaty cleavage. And the way that you make slate is you start with a mudstone, typically a marine mudstone, which is very rich in clay minerals. And if you have metamorphism, then the individual minerals line up perpendicular to the direction of maximum compression like that. And they also recrystallize into other platy minerals, micas, which all line up with the same orientation, so that when you have the rock here, as you cleave it, they break along the plates. It's because all the minerals are aligned that you end up with slaty cleavage. So that's cleavage. It's different from bedding. So the bedding is the primary layering that was produced during sedimentation. That starts off horizontal. And the cleavage is often at a very high angle to the bedding, as it is here. So while these are Cambrian rocks, and there are lots of fossils in them, trilobites and various things, because the fossils lay down sitting on top of the bedding, they end up parallel to the bedding. And if you have cleavage at a high angle to them, it cuts through the fossils, so you don't find the fossils. So cleavage is what's dominating all of the surfaces of the rocks here because it's slate. So how about climbing? Well, because it has this cleavage, because it breaks so easily, slate mountains generally don't have good crags on them. They're rounded. Where the cleavage does come out at a high angle to the mountain, you end up with things which are quite broken up and not very good for climbing on. The exception would be in the winter, when that all freezes up and you get quite nice turf roots on slate. But what's really good for slate is quarries. We quarried it because we can make slates from it, roofing slates from it, and you end up with these faces which are dominated by these cleavage planes. So either slabs, very hard friction things, maybe very thin edges where you're just catching a little bit of a cleavage layer across the cleavage plane, or things where you're breaking across the slaty cleavage and you end up with angular things and quite powerful climbing. Here in Llanberis, there's both trad and sport climbing. It's an acquired taste. It's a taste that I have to say I've yet to acquire. My feeling is that you need to be really careful on slate because it's got this cleavage in it, because it breaks along these planes. You really want to make sure that your protection is good. You want to make sure that any bolting is good, and also any little edges that you're pulling on, you probably want to really be very careful that it's still very sound, because ultimately it will break along the cleavage.